Have you ever thought about recording yourself while you're out on the lake and doing a little bit of fishing videos, whether it's for YouTube or maybe you just want to put those videos or have those videos so you can see how you fished through the day, save those memories or whatever. So y'all hang on, we're going to talk about it and show you how I do this. So let's get to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cameras that I use, the settings that I use, some of the gear, some of the mounts, because when I first started this, getting mounts was really a tricky thing, and maybe this will help you out a little bit. So here we go. Let's start out with the cameras. For cameras, well, I started out with a GoPro like a lot of people, and well, that thing was just a pain in the hind end really from day one. The thing would overheat. And if it was really over 80 or 85 degrees, that thing was just absolutely useless. It would, you know, you could film for a little bit in the mornings and then it would just overheat. And well, now I've settled on these. These are DJI Osmo Action 5s. And I have two of them, one that's recording this and this one right here. Now the one right here is this one right here, and it's mounted to my boat. And that's kind of my catch-all, see it everything that's going on around. You can see everything that's going on. And then this one right here, I use it as my chest camera. And why do I run two cameras? Well, it gives you different angles. So sometimes with this camera where you see all of this out here, you may not see what I'm casting at, especially if it's like over on this side of the boat over here. So if it's over here, you may not see that brush pile or that lily pads, grass, or whatever that's over there, and that can be important. Or where I make the cast sometimes is an important thing to look at. So the chest camera looking out is how that's done. So what I do with these two views is I take them back to my video editor and I use DaVinci Resolve. It's free, and that's important because, you know, free is always good. And it's actually a pretty decent editor, and it takes a little bit of a minute to learn how to use it, but it's not bad. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there that'll, if you want to do something, you can go out there and find out how to do it. So what I do is I have my chest camera and I have my boat camera, and I take those and I'll lay them in together in DaVinci Resolve, and then I'll match them up to where I can cut from this angle to this angle. And it's, pretty easy to do. It's not too bad. There's a little tool. If y'all want to know how to do that, we will figure out how to do that in DaVinci Resolve together if y'all want to do that. So when you got camera 1 and camera 2 here, and you want to sync them up, one important thing to do while you're out in the field videoing is to, you make a snap like that. One, you can see that snap in the video, and also when in your timeline, there'll be an audio spike in there. So when you do this, you can put those two snaps together on the two different videos, line them up, and then you can cut from this one to back and forth, however you want to do it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the gear I think that you need. And well, a lot of it come with the cameras, but there's a few things that I've got extra that I think are important. So to start out, essentially here is everything that I use. And this mount, this ram mount that I have right here, and all it is a ram ball right there that my ram mount goes, and I've got two pieces here. Let me set it back up here. So I've got the long arm, the ram long arm, and I think this is a medium arm here. And what that allows me to do is I can position this thing kind of like that right there, and I get this view right here at the boat, or from the console, I mean. And that gets all of my view facing forward of the boat. And really, if you just want to get one camera, this mount right here, I think is your important one. And there's another way that I used to do this, is I had this suction cup mount, and I would just suction cup it on to the windshield, and that's how I did it in the Triton when I had it. And then this thing adjusts a little bit, and you can do whatever. You can put it, you know, wherever you can find a good spot for it, you know, it's there. But over time, this thing is kind of loosened up. So that's why I went to this ram mount here. So there you go. If you got one camera, get a decent mount that you can mount to your console. There's other ways. They make those little sticky things. And I've got one up here. One of these things right here, you can stick that on anywhere. And then this thing just, if I can do it one-handed, this just snaps in and out. And then this camera right here. So sometimes I'll use this DJI right here to get a shot like this, where, you know, you're standing out like this. It just provides a different angle is all it does. So once you get your console mount or your overall view figured out, and really if you've got one camera, I think that's about the best one. And you know, if you get a chest mount or something, you can switch them back and forth. I've done that before plenty of times. And here's my chest mount. It's a GoPro brand. I got it when I had my GoPro. It still works. All of these connectors and everything right here, they all work the same. GoPro, DJI, a lot of your action cameras. And really the only thing I've got in there is a little extension thing. And why I've got that is when I'm wearing my inflatable life jacket, it just kind of pushes the camera out just a little bit to make sure that it's not like back in the life jacket. You're not getting obscured view of the life jacket. So another little mount I've been playing with is one of these neck mounts. I'm not real sold on it yet, but it is kind of handy. It doesn't take up as much. It rides a little higher. I found sometimes with the chest mount, sometimes when you're setting the hook, especially with a jig or something, sometimes I feel like I'm hitting the camera a lot of times. So I'm hoping that this might alleviate that a little bit and go from there. All right, here we go. We got our life jacket on, got the neck mount, got the little microphone underneath that. We might have to play with that a little bit, but this seems pretty good. I don't feel like I'm gonna be, from setting the hook, I don't feel like I'm gonna be hitting the camera with it, but we'll find out. It's new. This is how this works. Woo. So what else do you need to film yourself? Well, if you got the camera and everything, you're fine. But if you're gonna talk some or whatnot, especially if you're standing up there at the front of the boat, you need one of these things right here. You need a little mic, and this is the DJI Mic Mini. And the reason I got this one is because it connects straight to the camera. There's no other plugs or anything. You stick it in there and it rocks and rolls and it goes on. The only thing I found with it is, like, if you film with it all day, there might be you might start getting a little bit of lag in between what you're saying and what's recorded and all that. So your lips aren't always matching up, but I found that all you got to do is cut the camera off for a little bit and then cut it back on, and everything reconnects and you're good to go. But if you don't want to do the mics, you can use your chest camera as your audio. And I've done that for years, is use the audio from the DJI and my GoPro. Audio is important. If people can't hear you, or if it's all got whoosh, 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 whoosh from wind and everything, it sounds bad. So this thing right here, it's got this little wind muff on it. And a lot of times I'll take one of these little things right here, these little magnetic mounts like this. And see if I can do this one-handed. And I'll take my microphone and I'll just put that on and I'll drop it underneath my shirt, and that really helps knock the wind out. So it'll be just hanging like this, but it'll be underneath my shirt. You don't ever see it, but you know, it produces good audio. Now the other thing is, if you're going to use this thing, one thing you got to do is you got to dig into the settings and turn the wind reduction on. And this camera actually does a really good job of reducing wind noise and just having your voice come through. So you can use this to do your audio, but if you just have the one camera, I would suggest investing in a set of the DJI Mic Minis, because they really help. And the other thing about them is, with the DJI Action 5 camera, you can run 2 of those things. So if you got a buddy in the boat, you can put a mic on them too, and you can get all the audio, you can get your conversation and all that. I do a lot of that, like if Dean or Scott's out in the boat with me and we do an episode of Fishing Friends, I'll put a mic on them if I remember. Sometimes I forget, but usually I've been pretty good about remembering to do that here lately. But we put mics on and we got the whole conversation throughout the day. And then, if something happens and somebody burps or, whatever, and somebody's catching a fish, well, you can separate those 2 audios in 2 different channels, and you can just delete that out, and it makes it real handy to do that. So, power. You gotta be able to power these cameras all day. So here's what I do. For my chest camera, I've got a slew, well, I've got 5 of these. They're the batteries that come with it. So I've got 5 of these things, and they'll last about an hour and a half to 2 hours recording. And with 5 of them, I can get about 10 hours of video in a day, and no problem. Now, what I like about running the batteries is you don't have a cord coming out, and you don't have a power pack stuck in your pocket or whatever. You don't have to worry about, if it's raining, you don't have to worry about sealing anything up to keep water out. It's real handy. And sometimes if it's raining or whatever, I'll just run the one camera and just run just the chest camera, and it's all sealed up and everything, and it's good to go. All right, now for this camera, since I don't have enough batteries to run it all, what I do is down here underneath here, I have, I can get it out here. What I have is I have one of these portable battery chargers, and there's Velcro. I put some Velcro on it, and I put a piece of Velcro up there, and I can just set that thing up in there. I don't know if you can see it. Ooh. Just set this thing up in here, and it'll set up in there all day. And that one battery will run this camera right here all day, and no problems. And all I've got is just a USB-C cord that comes down. I got a piece of Velcro strip on there just to kind of keep that thing from flopping over everywhere. And then one thing I found is if you get these right angled USB-Cs, it cuts down on what's sticking out of here, because I've had people walk by and catch it and then pop that thing out and whatnot. And if you don't have a battery in here, then your camera dies and all of that. So just plug that in there, and it'll be good to go all day. So there's a couple of non-essential things that I think you need, and one of them is this thing right here. What it is a little lens cap that goes on your camera, and when you're storing it, it protects your lens. They don't come with that. I found those on Amazon. I'll leave a link for them down there in the bottom. That's real handy. It's not required, but it is handy. So another thing this is required, is to have a little microfiber cloth, because when you catch a fish and whatnot, it's good to clean that lens off, because if you get any water spray or anything in there, then you'll get water spots on your camera, so just get in there and wipe that thing off and take care of that, and it'll make your videos a whole lot better. So the last thing that's, I think, is real handy but not required, is this right here. And what this is, it's a polarizer filter, and sometimes if it's real bright and sunny, it helps to put this, and I put it on my main camera. I don't put it on my chest camera, but I do put it on this, and it just helps to cut some of the glare off of the water, trees, whatever. Especially if it's bright and sunny, it also kind of reduces the amount of light that's going through, so you get a little better cinematic deal, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it does you know, it does work on the glare and everything. That thing is real handy. The last little handy thing I got with my DJI kit was this little bag here. I put both my cameras in it, keeps them protected. It's real handy. So if you get the kit, make sure you get one with that. And then the other one I got the little, this telescoping rod thing. Put that thing way out there if you need to. Put it under the water if you want to get some underwater shots. And it came with the battery deal too. So that's how I ended up with all the batteries. All this stuff was in 2 kits, the Adventure kit and the Essential kit, I think is what I had. I'll leave the links to them too. Anyways, we've talked about the power, we've talked about the mounts, we've talked about the cameras. Let's go back to the office and we'll talk about the settings on the camera, because I think that's important for you. How to set these things up so you can get a good video out of them. So let's go to the office and we'll be off the lake and we'll be back there in just a minute. All right, we've got our 2 cameras here. So let's talk about the settings that I like to use for these. One thing that you'll see here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but on the door of this one, there's a number 2, and this one doesn't have the door on it because this is my console camera, and I run a USB cord onto that to run the power all day. On this one, I run batteries, and I leave the door on it so it stays waterproof and all that good stuff. So let's start with this number 2 camera, and the number 2 camera is the one that I use on my chest for kind of my view of what's going on. So let's take this thing and let's turn it on, and you can see there's a couple of different menus around here. This is your battery. This is some of your audio and video parameters. There's a zoom on it. You know, if you want to do zoom, you can do that. I don't ever use that. This up here in the upper left tells you how much time you have remaining. If you click on this one, you can go to see if you got any video in there. And down here in the bottom right tells you is your kind of your modes that you can go from time lapse to slow motion to night mode, video, photo, and if you have a custom mode, you can do that. So we'll talk about the custom mode here in a minute. But to start out with, we want to make sure we're in video mode. And then here in the bottom center, if you swipe up on that, you can see you've got a bunch of different options here that you can pick from. And this is like your 4K or 1080 or whatever. And then on the bottom, you can choose how many frames per second you want to use. So we'll go over that here in just a second. And then up here in the upper right is the modes for your video. So you can go from video to a pre-record. And the pre-record is you can just have this thing going, and then if there's something happens that you want to film, all you gotta do is hit the button, and then it will have recorded the past so many minutes. You know, there's different things here. You can go from 5 seconds all the way up to 5 minutes. That could be useful. I don't use that. So what I use is I use loop recording, and I use 5 minutes. So we're going to go back. So now we got our loop recording on here with 5 minutes. And what I use for my chest camera is I use 4K at 16:9 resolution. And then our frame is 60 frames per second. Now I use 60 frames per second because if something happens, say a fish jumps or something like that, and you want to slow that video down, the 60 frames really helps with that, especially if your timeline in your video editing software, if you choose 30 frames per second, there you can slow that thing down and not lose any information on that. The other thing that you need to pick out is up here in the upper right corner here is you have options of standard, wide, ultra wide, and then rock steady plus, and horizontal balancing. Now, on my chest camera, I choose this rock steady here, and I choose the ultra wide angle. Now I want the ultra wide angle so that there's a big angle that you can see for what's going on, and I don't have to necessarily turn my body right to where the action's going. That ultra wide angle will get that. It'll get up in the sky. It'll sometimes pick up the depth finder. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do with that ultra wide angle that that's pretty neat. So now that we've got our loop mode recording, we've got our 4K, 60 frames per second, rock steady, ultra wide, and a 5-minute time frame. There's a couple other things that needs to be set. Well, you could probably just pick the camera up, turn it on, and do it, but these are a few things that I found that work pretty well. Right here on the right side in the middle, if you push this, if you just turn it on, it's going to come up with this right here. But you got a Pro camera, well, the Osmo 5 Pro, so you might as well use those Pro features, right? So you click on the Pro, there's going to be some extra menus come up. Now, exposure, I leave this thing on auto. And one other thing I do is you can change what the ISO is, or what the range of the ISO is on the camera. So normally I'll leave this about 1 to 12,800, and I don't want it going all the way as high as it can go, especially when it gets dark, because then it'll get a little grainy. I'd rather it be dark than too grainy. So to set that, you just hit confirm. The white balance, I normally just leave it on auto. You could change it to 5,500 or 5,000 or something like that if you wanted to, but I just leave it on auto and hit confirm. The color here, I shoot on normal 10-bit. You could leave it on the normal 8-bit. The 10-bit, you get a little bit more information if you need to go in and color correct something in your video editor. Normal 10-bit, or if you're really into color grading and all that, which you don't have to be. You could do the D-Log or the HLG. That's kind of like a HDR type video. I don't really like that, so I just leave it on the normal 10-bit, and then I hit confirm. And then this scenario, I just leave it on daily. You could put it on sport. You know, if you're running your boat down the lake or something, you might change it to sport or something. But for just about fishing all the time, I leave it on daily, hit confirm. But here's a couple of adjustments right here is this texture and noise reduction. They come on 0, but I like to put them on -1 for each one of those. This camera seems like it has a little bit of, I don't know, it tones the sharpness down just a little bit to do that, and it makes it not look so, it just makes the picture look better, I think. You could leave it on 0 and it would be fine, but just hit confirm on that, and you're done with the video part of it. Now, if you can see the little microphone part right here, if you hit that, there's options here. And for this one, I leave the channel on mono, and then there's a noise reduction that we were talking about out on the boat. And here's where you change that. You can either turn it off, do standard, or high. Now, normally I switch it to the standard noise reduction, and that seems to do pretty well. Unless it's really windy, then I might change it up to high, but most of the time I just leave it on the standard. And this this camera right here, it does a pretty good job of cutting the wind noise out and having pretty decent audio when you're wearing it on your chest. Now, for your console camera, you could run it exactly the same and be fine. But there's a few things that you might want to change. There's one change I think you should make on the console if you're going to run it in this format is when you're here at the bottom and you're selecting your resolution and everything, up here, instead of using rock steady, I have used a horizon balance. So what that does is if your camera's off just a little bit, it will keep the horizon level and it won't move your video. It keeps everything level. So that's a pretty handy little feature, and I have used that. But with my console camera, there's there's two changes that we make. One, we're using the DJI Mic Mini, so the audio is a little bit different, and there's a little bit of difference on the video setup. So on this console camera that I have, what I like to do is instead of using 4K at 16.9 resolution, I like to switch it to 4K and 4.3 and still run it on 60 frames per second. But when you do that, you can't use that horizon steady. So I use rock steady and I use the standard D-warp. Now you might ask, well, why do you do that? Well, for one thing, when you use that 4.3 resolution, you're using the whole sensor in the camera. When you use the 16.9, it kind of scrunches it down just a little bit. So you'll use a little bit of your sensor on top. So, you know, you got a 1-inch sensor in there, so I think you ought to use it all. And at the console, using the 4.3, I think is a good thing. Plus, if you like to make shorts or TikToks or Instagram reels, you've got more information in there that you can change that in to use in a vertical video. So that's why I do that. I have run it on the 16.9, used that horizon balancing thing, and just let it run that way. It's good either way. Just depends on what you want to do. So when you use your Mic Mini from DJI and you cut this thing on, it should come in here and it'll tell you that you have it set up. And you can also see this little green bar. That's your audio levels, so you can kind of have an idea of how if you're using your mic, how the audio is coming across. Because if you talk real loud, you can see it kind of blows it out there. But with this thing, there's one other little setting that I like to do in here. So if you come over here, I run all of this exactly the same way. But here in the audio, one thing I do is I change this channel to stereo. I don't do anything to the gain. I think the gain is fine with the Mic Mini. And then I don't run any noise reduction right here. I leave that off because this thing has a little furry mic on the front of it, and that seems to take care of a lot of those wind noise issues. Plus, if you're using it and you tuck it underneath your shirt, then you got another layer of audio in there, so it just keeps the any of that digital nonsense from going on if you run it off. And if you can run it off, that's the best way to do it. But if it is real noisy and you're getting a lot of extra whoosh, 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 then you can turn some noise reduction on it as well. So there's another little handy feature with your DJI Osmo camera that I like to employ with my console camera. And what I like to do is I like to turn it into just a regular camera, and you can just go down here to what you do is you go down here to this, and you just swap it over to the photo mode, and you can choose aspect ratio, and I just leave it in 16.9 because that fits on your social media pages. And you can also tell it how many, if you want to take multiple pictures or whatever. But what I leave it at is there's a countdown timer right here that you can tell it how long to do. And I leave that countdown timer on 5 seconds. When you have it in the photo mode, and then you come up here and you get that countdown, and that allows you time to push the button, step back a little bit, hold your fish up, and take a picture. It's a real handy little deal, and this thing does a really good job with doing photographs. And one little extra secret little thing that I think is real handy on these things, if you're flipping between video and photo, right here on this side is the power button, but if you just push it,
fishing, video, photo, 1.
You'll hear that it goes to photo to fishing videos, and what that is those are saved presets that I've done. If you swipe down, this little person icon, if you do that, you can come in here and you can save the current setting, and then there's other little deals here, little presets. There's bicycles, there's the fishing one, and that's the one that I use for the video. Some guy, vlogging, whatever. So let's do the diving and confirm. So now if you look right here, there's a little dive emblem, and if we switch between them,
fishing, video,
go to fishing,
video, photo, 1, diving, photo.
So there, we got a diving photo set up now, and it's real handy to just switch back and forth. You just push the button and it goes back and forth. You can take your picture, let your fish go, and then switch it back.
Fishing, video.
Back to fishing. Now you're back to recording and you're ready to go catch another fish. So I don't know if y'all can see in there, but this right here is a real handy little thing to do. Is if you can see this grid in here, and I like to turn that on all my cameras. It just helps you frame your picture or your video. A lot of times with this bottom line, I know exactly where on my boat now to line that thing up, and I get a good picture of at my console camera. I can use that grid to get a lineup on where I'm shooting, and over time I've kind of figured out where that needs to be. But to find that, you just go down here, swipe down, you go to settings, and you scroll down, and this grid right here, you just come to that, and you can do different ones. There's a diagonal and a grid. I just used the grid, and it puts it on there, and it's real handy to kind of help set your scene up. So I hope that kind of helps you figure it out. I mean, you can use your phone, but using your phone and having enough memory and all that in your phone and all that, if you're like me, my phone is pretty much full, so I can't use mine. But you could use your phone, but having an action camera and this DJI Osmo Action 5 is a really good deal. It doesn't overheat. Well, I just say that. I have had it overheat one time, and it was like 95 to 100 degrees, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no breeze. It was just steamy. There was no air moving. So I did have it overheat that 1 or 2 times when it was like that this summer. But what you can do if that happens is these cameras, if you take the battery out of them and then hook them up to the USB, you can still run them without a battery in it. And I have just taken this door and opened it up too to let some air in when it's really hot. And like I said, that's only happened a couple times. Other than that, I don't think I really had any other issues with them. I did have an issue with an SD card one time, but it was not writing real fast to it. But formatted that card and everything seems to work. Other than that, I think the big thing is just to get the camera, get out there. If you guys have made it this far, make sure you hit that like and maybe hit that subscribe button. Help me out with that. If y'all got questions, I'll leave links to all of the cameras and mounts and everything that I can down there in the description. So if you want to get something, use the link. It helps it out. It's an Amazon link, so you know, it doesn't cost you anything. It just helps the channel out a little bit with a commission on it. So anyways, thanks for stopping by. I'm Rodney. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch y'all out on the water next time. We're out.